All right. So my talk is money stock equals total money, total domestic debt. And today I like to present my theory of debt money. So I try to make it as simple as possible so that you can understand the essence of my research result. So it could be a little bit overlapping from my talks last year, but please allow me to repeat the same content. Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. So, okay. So at the ninth annual AMI conference in 2013, I made an announcement that I published a book titled Money and Macroeconomics. And with this book, I've been working on the macroeconomic system dynamic modeling of debt money. And at the same time, after I attended the AM conference since 2010, I got a lot of things to learn from your group, and I put all the ideas I learned from AMI seminar, and I added my chapters every year after I attend the conference. So after 4 years of my attendance, I finally got the whole idea as a book. So this was the starting point of my research on monetary reform. And at that time, if you remember, I said, this is my book, but at the same time, many ideas come from this conference. So I said, it is also your book. Okay. So, and I still continue my research. This is my latest version. Now it's becomes edition 5.1. And I just updated several days before. Now, okay, see. Now it's now become available as a free downloadable PDF ebooks from this site. And for this edition 5, see, I added 3 more chapters and about 200 more pages. And the good thing is now I made this ebook as a hyperlink textbook. So whenever you download this book, you can jump to any part of the book. So in this sense, I think it's maybe of your informations when you look at researchers research on monetary system. Okay. So today I would like to start with my new classification of money. I call it a monetary universe. So I put all type of money into this simple classification table. That means whenever you discuss about the money, you may probably take a look at this classification table and you find the money you are discussing in this table. So if you read this table horizontally, you can read many different type of media that carry information of commodity value, because money is just information to carry the monetary value. So the media to carry that monetary information has been historically non-metal commodities like shell cloth, and metal coinage like coins and gold, silver, then paper note like banknote. Then nowadays a digital card and bank account, it's just a digital number. Then after the 2008, we had blockchain technologies, and all of a sudden people started talking about blockchain based on the distributed ledgers or cryptocurrency media. So in this way, we can classify money in terms of all medias. This covers all types of medias which can carry monetary values. But this is not the only way to classify the monetary money. So if you try to classify vertically, then we have now, this time we have now two different definitions of money, as if this is the front side of the coin and back side of the coin. So money can be classified in terms of who issues money. So in this case, if money is issued by the public organization, we call it a public money. And if it's issued by the private banks, we call it a debt money. So there are only two types of money according to this definition of the classification. So what's the difference between public and debt money? As already you know that public money is issued at interest free, debt money is issued at interest. So this is the main difference between public and debt money. If you look at the other side of the coin, so we could say whether that money could be used as a fiat money so that no one can reject to accept it. So that is called money as legal tender. And historically, the public money has been the legal tender. But nowadays, for some reasons, some debt money issued by central banks becomes also legal tender. So that makes classification a little more confusing. So in this sense, those monies can be classified as legal tender. At the same time, we have another important type of money which only functions as money, but usually we accept that as money. That is bank deposit. In old-fashioned way, it is called credit, and I define this time this credit or bank deposit as functional money because it only functions as money. So this is the way we classify money. So this is I found this very, very useful whenever we discuss about money. For instance, whenever you talk about MMT, modern monetary theory, their money is only debt money. They miss public money in their definitions. So in this way, we can bring all type of money into this monetary universe. Then you can compare. So I started using this money, monetary concept, very, very useful in my class. Okay. Now, based upon that classification, now I classify money in this way. Traditionally, we have M0 base money, then we have M1, and this difference between M1 and M0 is defined as functional money. Then we add the time deposit, then that's add up to the whole M3 concept. This is the definition of money I'm going to use in my research. Okay. Then based upon these classifications, this is the latest research on my monetary issues. And this time I try to classify all money stocks in circulation in Japanese economy. So this table shows that if we take front definition of money, that means who issues, then we can identify that in Japan, only public money consists of coin is only 0.3%. So the remaining 99.7% of money are debt money issued by private banks. Okay, that is the definition of the front side. But if you take back side, then we have a concept of legal tender. Legal tender is almost 35% in Japan. Then legal tender is the same as base money. And this base money consists of coins and banknote and reserve. So those three constitute base money. Out of this base money, we call coins and banknote as currencies. Then we have the bank deposit. So this currency and demand deposit constitute M1. M1 is the most basic money we can use for daily payment transactions. And we define the difference between this demand deposit and reserve as functional money. So this functional money used to be called credit by the economists before 1930s. Okay, so then we have the time deposit or saving. So if we add this time deposit, we have a whole concept of money. That money is called in Japan money stock M3, because in Japan we used to have money stock M2, but M2 excluded savings or deposit of Japanese post office. Then after the post office was privatized, now the Bank of Japan started using additional concept of money as M3. So in this way now in Japan, almost all monies we are using are debt money. So then the question is, where does debt money come from? Where does debt money come from? So this is a basic research subject of today's presentations. So where does debt money come from? So as you already know, the answer is already given by the forward of Robert Hemphill. He was a credit manager at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, 1935. So I repeatedly quote his forward because it just exactly tells all about nature of money as loan. So let me just briefly read this one. Neither the banker nor the borrowers ordinarily realize that a loan just completed is putting into circulation that much new money. If all bank loans were repaid, no one would have a bank deposit, and there would not be a dollar of currency or coin in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We are completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar. This is the point we have in circulation, cash or credit. And credit is a traditional naming by economics, but now this credit is called bank deposit. And in my definition, I call it a functional money. So in this way, so the answer is debt money comes from loans. And we want to find out whether this vision is correct or by using Bank of Japan's or Japanese monetary data. So, and so that means here, all money starts with bank loan, then that create M1. Eventually part of M1 is reserved to meet the required reserve ratios. Then the money which leaks from circulation is saved as a time deposit. So this is how all debt money in Japan is created. They eventually, then, okay. So eventually, all we have to do is to show that loans have to be equal to money stocks. So this is the target of this research, and this really clarifies the nature of money we are using right now. Okay, so our research question is total domestic debt have to be equal to money stock. So what I want to show is exactly this question, and that's also answer meets the answer of the forward of the 100% money book. Okay. So this research is done by myself and younger researchers in Japan, and I presented this research at the international conference in Turkey, in Ankara last year. So you can read my paper from working paper from this address. Okay. So we started with this research by importing all flow fund account data from the Bank of Japan. And flow fund is a very complicated table. It consists of 6 major macroeconomic sectors like banks, corporations, government, households, non-profit, overseas. And these 6 sectors are further divided into 45 subsectors. So that is one part of the flow fund. The other part is flow fund have 15 transactions like currency, deposit, loan, and debt and equity, something like that. Then these transactions are also further broken down into 51 subtitles. So that means flow fund data provided by Bank of Japan annually consists of 45 columns and 51 rows. So in total, more than 2,000 matrix cells, and multiplied by the time series of, say, 30 years. So that means we have now almost 90,000 data. So we created a basic model to read all data. We can now manipulate this data to do our research. So this is how we started our research. Then here is a result of our time series analysis. So M0 is a base money, has been growing very steadily, but all of a sudden after the 2013, because of the QE policy, which we'll discuss later, M0 jumped to increase. M1 is also increasing steadily, but to my surprise, MT is a time deposit or savings. MT also continued to increase, but when the Japanese bubble economy got bust, then savings began to decline. In respect of this decrease, total money stock M3 continued to increase. So this is how then we organize time series data of current monetary stocks in Japan. And to compare this one with debt, now we defined total debt, total domestic as a sum of loans made by bank and government borrowing, government debt. And this bank loans is made to producers and household. So in this way, total debt consists of the debt by producers, household, and government. So those are just data we organize. Then we try to understand the relation. So that means so far we organize base money, functional money, and M1, then MT time saving, then M3 total money. Then we also organize a debt, total debt, and loans to the household and producers and government debt. Then we also added the GDP data. So in this way, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 data, time series data. So we run this coefficient correlation analysis by using Python. Python is a very popular machine learning or IT software right now. So and we run this coefficient correlation analysis. And here is a heat map of correlations. So whenever we have darker and darker colors, we have less correlations. So here is a very, very, very surprising research. So that means now M3 total money is related with debt, and MT time saving is related with private debt. The M1 is by surprise is closely correlated with government debt. So we'll discuss GDP data. So in this way, here is a surprising finding from our research. That means here is our finding. We found 3 interesting correlations. So first of all, this blue line is the total money stocks in circulation in Japan. And this red line is the total domestic debt made by household, producers, and government. So now you can see these two lines have a very close correlation. So we'll discuss later. So this is the first finding that M3 is exactly created by the domestic debt. The second finding that line 3 is loans made by banks to household and producer. And line 4 turned out to be the savings, which has leaked out of the circulation. So it turned out that private sector's loans are equal to savings. That's another interesting finding. Then, okay. So again, line 4 is a time savings, and line 3 is private sector's loan. So those are correlated. Then the third finding is that government debt is shown by line 5. This government debt increases along with M1. M1 is the money which we use for daily life transactions. So this is the 3 interesting observations we found from our data analysis of the flow fund. Then from here, it's a little technical, so we just skip this result. So we ran this a kind of econometric research to show the relation. So that means whenever our debt increases, that increases money stock. So this answers the first question. Money stock we are using in our debt management system comes from someone's loan. That's very important statement. This applies to all economic systems. So this is a very powerful result. So that means the M3 is explained by the debt. So coefficient of determination is just very close to 1. So that means this is exactly, we have to know that our money is endogenously created because we borrow money. So that's a very important statement we have to understand if we pursue our monetary reform. Okay. A second one is a little bit, it may be specific to Japan. So that is why I'm encouraging economists in other countries to do the similar research. So in Japan, private loans to the household and producers end up with time deposit. And loans by the government end up with the M1. So this is very, very interesting. That means now the Japanese government debt GDP ratio is more than 250%. That all the money government borrows goes into the M1. Okay, that is the observation we found from our data analysis. Okay, now quickly, now we learned all type of monies are created by debt endogenously. And here is a very well-known, famous quantitative theory of money equation. It is proposed by Irving Fisher. And every student learned in economics classroom that MV, money supply, always determine the price level or the transactions. But now we learned from our research that money is created as debt. So the question, how does debt determine price and T? So for this purpose, I just picked up GDP as a representative of PT. So that means next question is, how does the debt stimulate GDP? Okay, so then I try to find out the relation, but to answer this one, let me explain how Japanese economy stopped growing for the last 30 years. Japan is the only country among the OECD countries which couldn't grow. Only Japan is the exceptional case. of suffering 3 decades of no growth. So this is a growth rate suddenly stopped. And so Japanese government and Bank of Japan tried to stimulate Japanese GDP by introducing monetary and fiscal policies. All policies of monetary policy and fiscal policy failed in Japan. And we are still suffering from this 3 decades of recession. What's wrong with the case of Japan? And now United States and European country may be also following the similar recessions. What's wrong with this? And the answer could be probably obtained from our research. So here is the correlation between GDP and private domestic loan. Now you see GDP and private loans have a very good correlation. It grows simultaneously. When private loans stopped growing, so all of a sudden GDP dropped. So in this case, GDP and private domestic loans have very good correlations. And so this is a linear regression. That GDP can be explained by the private loan. So that's another important factor we found in Japan. So that means first, to stimulate the economy, first private sector have to make loans. That means the household have to borrow money for housing investment, and corporation have to borrow money for the real investment. So in this way, this investment stimulates GDP. And as a result, the money which is used to grow GDP now end up with time deposit. So this is what we found. So it is exactly the opposite of we learned from economics textbook or mainstream economics. Mainstream economics or the Keynesian economics says always the savings leaks from the circulation. That means now banks have to collect savings and make loans out of this saving. Then that will stimulate the economy. That is how our traditional economic theory tells us. But what we found is totally opposite. So to stimulate the economy, the private sectors, whether it's producers or household, have to borrow money. Otherwise, GDP cannot grow. This is exactly what happened in Japan. Compared with this one, now the Japanese government tried to overcome this 3 decades of recession, tried to introduce fiscal policy by borrowing money. So as a result, for the last 20 years, Japanese government borrowed as much as GDP, but so that means that this amount of money borrowed, it increased also M1, but this fiscal policy didn't stimulate GDP at all. So this is a case. So that means almost government debt doesn't stimulate the economy at all. Even so, we are told that under the recessions, government should use fiscal policies to stimulate the economy. So this is also policy proposed by modern monetary theory. They say that government borrow money because the borrowing money is the same as issuing money stock, according to MMT. So I don't have time to discuss MMT, but so Japanese economy totally shows that MMT's proposal is wrong. Okay, so in this way now, so this is how then GDP is stimulated by private loan, and how GDP is affected by government loan. So if we take from this point, government GDP increase does not stimulate government that does not stimulate GDP at all. So if we run this multiple regression, this is our result that GDP can be more effectively stimulated by private loans, and government debt cannot simulate GDP compared with private sector. So that means it's obvious which policy have to be employed to make Japanese economy great again. So, but unfortunately, Japanese government took fiscal policy, and Bank of Japan took also long monetary policy, which is called QE. So, see, I mean, QE means quantitative easing policy, which is adopted by many European countries as well. So, idea of QE is very simple. Just central bank, the Bank of Japan, increase M0. So eventually, this base money M0 will increase M1, and that will increase stimulate GDP. But it turned out that central bank can only increase base money M0. But as we have already seen, M1 money supply can be created by the debt of the private sector. So that means central bank has no control over M1. Even so, they believe that by affecting M0, they can affect M1 that eventually affect GDP. So that was the idea used by central bank under the QE policy. So in this sense, then our traditional theory of quantitative easing policy also failed. So that means all theories so far proposed by mainstream economists failed. So what's wrong with our system then? So it's their research didn't focus on the monetary theory part. So that is why I say here almost all money in Japan are debt money. So if you don't analyze or reform this debt money, then we cannot get out of this recession. So because now we have already discussed in this seminar that debt money system has major system design failures. So first failure is this debt money system creating instability and money stocks. Second failure is accumulate government debt. The third failure is income inequalities between financiers, bankers, and non-bankers. Then also it helped to disrupt our environment. So those are the just system design failure of debt money system. So that means any smart policies employed by the government cannot overcome this one unless we change this monetary system. So, and one comment is modern money theory is just debt money theory. That policy, for instance, Green New Deal cannot overcome this system design failure of debt money system. So that is why I have been proposing only public money system can solve system design failure. So that means in this research, we found that almost all money in Japan are debt money, only 0.3% public money, and 30% only legal tender. So this debt money system have to be changed into public money system. Under the public money systems, as this diagram says, all debt money is changed into public money. At the same time, functional money is changed into legal tender. So we have to make this part as all green public money, and this part as all purple legal tender. So this is what Irving Fisher called 100% of money. So this is the way we have to move by understanding that the current debt money system has a serious system design failure based upon my research here. Then finally, even though public money system, we propose electronic public money as the money of the future. And my chapter 7 my chapter 18 now discusses electronic public money. So this is the direction our group have to move as a money of future. So in this way, I'm using this book in my graduate study. So my student or master's courses and PhD students really like my approach.
19.
So this is I'm just doing right now. So almost 30 minutes. Okay. So I'll stop here. So this is what I'm doing here in Ankara, Turkey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yamaguchi. In the chat, there were some questions, but we will collect them for later with the panel. Some of the observations were, of course, that what you are proposing is what the NEED Act is proposing, that Mr. Zelenga worked so hard on. But I guess we will discuss that with the panel. Thank you so much again.
If this video is helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for new video notifications. Please consider donating at monetary.org/donate. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at AMI Monetary or on our website